The Colchagua Valley is renowned as one of Chile's most prestigious valleys. Positioned inside of the Central Valley is what has become an icon of Chilean wine production. Some of Chile's finest red wines are cultivated within this noteworthy valley, comprising largely from that of Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmenère and Syrah. Colchagua has developed a reputation as the pre-eminent South American centrepiece wine Provence, forming the southwestern half of the larger Rapel Valley region. North-eastwards of the Colchagua Valley does reside the less widely known, however almost equally promising, Cachapoal Valley, found at the base of the Andean foothills that do skirt east with the Chilean Coastal Range westward. Colchagua does form the southern arm of the Rapel Valley wine region, reputed to house microclimates and varied soils that are also scattered throughout Colchagua's sibling valleys such as Apalta and Lolol. Having been proved worthy of its own denomination of origin, Chile's wine region designation system, Colchagua is a boisterous viticulture centre and is a region that does decorate with honour much of what is currently promoting Chile as an enthusiastic and engaging wine-producing nation. The Tingurarica River does originate upon a volcano of the same name and is a watercourse located in the Libertador General Bernardo O'Higgins region, fed in the Andes at the confluence of the rivers Las Damas and Del Azufre. The river will pass through the Colchagua Valley, allowing for bellowed harvests of exalting, rhythmic, ripening grapes that are transfigured into authoritative single grape varietals and complementary blends. At the Tingurarica River's source, waters will flow northwest for approximately 56 kilometres until reaching the vicinity to the city of San Fernando. In this portion of its trajectory, the rivers will accept additional streams from the tributaries Clarillo and Clara. Afterwards, the river will begin to consider then ultimately having to be inevitably guided into flowing southwest prior to altering orientation northwest once more as it is led into a final chorus of emptying itself into the Rapel Lake. The local indigenous Mapuche, translated as people of the earth, do encompass a dispersed series of earlier inhabiting groups that have occupied both southern Chile as well as Argentina. Verbal communication had been generally expressed by way of the Mapudungun language, along with numerous other coinciding customs and traditions that would also take place amongst the native greater populace. The epicenter of the Mapuche heartland is placed between the Atata and Tolton rivers in Chile's south-central zone. Evidential remains have been uncovered by archaeologists that do reveal and present signs of historic Mapuche occupation from this area as early as 600 to 500 BC. Mapuche practices and beliefs are interconnectedly coalescent with their immediate natural surroundings, comprising of orchestrated healing ceremonies as well as enactments incorporating the use of Mapuche herbal medicine. Sacraments are ritualistically undertaken amongst the community by the Maquis, a Mapuche shaman who does occupy the role as chief for this society, with a female as the most likely candidate to be appointed for this prominent, pious position. A Maquis will initiate and coordinate formalities that are administered and then implemented in order to ward off illness or evil with what ought to be pure intentions, collaborated with the purpose for consoling and protection of their native constituency for upcoming harvests, as well as any other societal regulatory matters. Maquis do hold an understanding for natural medicine that does include varied remedies formulated with compounds found from the local region's biodiversity. medicine tradition is of paramount prominence for the Mapuche culture, still present in contemporary Chilean practices as a primary and alternative treatment from that of what would be claimed to be more advanced Western medicinal therapies. There is also an affluent fellowship of textile production amongst the Mapuche, as a practice that has predated prior to the conquest of the colonialist Spanish. Weaving techniques and pattern making have continued to be passed on to the younger generations, having been taught by the female members of the Mapuche village communities. Textiles would mostly be crafted into either ponchos or blankets, as these garments were considered to be the most desirable commercial trading commodities for pre-colonial eras. Additionally, the Mapuche were also understood to be capable of producing certain pieces of metalwork, and by the mid-1700s, many Mapuche had begun to fabricate and assemble more refined artisan silver work. In terms of varietals, Carmenère is celebrated and adored as the overarching jewel for this region, as the warm climate and deep soils are ideal. However, there is also an extended ensemble of grape varieties with anticipated optimism and affirmations, such as the Connoisseur Old Vine Pinot Noir in foggy Chimbarongo, to Casa Silva's Vineyard in Lolol, and even Canapé's youthful Sangiovese in Machihué. Syrah is well established, especially in Apalta, and Malbec is another regional forte, particularly from the many old vines that do offer a ripe, although grippy, pleasant amount of tannins that are earthy, forging graphite undertones that are noticeable without being overly obtrusive. Carmenère is a rare and uncommon vine throughout the world that has been placed beside and upon the more warmer valleys of Chile, afterwards having been originally favoured throughout the Medoc region of Bordeaux, France, during the early 18th century. The primary Carmenère cultivating locales today are found to be situated in Aconcagua and the Central Valley, explicitly within the valley of Colchagua, where Carmenère has become a unique and treasured figure of pride for many Chilean wine producers that are operating from this viticulture province. Presently, Carmenère has become almost completely eradicated from the originating European regions and has become mostly popular within and now almost exclusively deriving from Chile, where it undoubtedly has managed to produce esteemed wines of this particular grapevine. Carmenère is capable of producing full-bodied and well-structured wines that do harness subtle tannic texture, resulting with wines that are far more readily accessible at a notably youthful age, harmonising with other varietals as a blended composition. Carmenère and Merlot in the past had been confused for some time in Chile, as they both do share a paired elegance and charm with one another, as well as a propensity to equally offer bold, dark fruit flavours when ripened. It was not until 1994 that the Chilean Carmenère had been identified and then aptly categorised correctly as its own distinct variety. There is a deep colour, plush tannins with peerless aromas of flavourful spices that has enabled the very poised Carmenère to surpass Merlot as the second most widely planted Chilean red variety, following on from Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Franc is also a grapevine that has originated from Bordeaux, with a tendency for verdant tasting profiles whenever prematurely harvested or during periods of diminishing yields. Enthusiasts' comments have declared that the subtle herbal notations are to be acknowledged and rejoiced attributes, rather than shunned, as these eccentric characteristics do include an additional dimension of depth with further complexity. Cabernet Franc wines do offer a delicate array of aromatic red fruits and herbs with a peppery earthiness. There is also a medium to high level of contained acidity that does convey a refreshing and pleasant palate. Maquis is one of the earliest wineries to have been established in the Colchagua Valley, with now having had 4 generations of the Hurtado family coordinating operations. Jesuit priests were the first to manage the Maquis estate that has held an association with the production of noble wine grapes since the 18th century. 2 Chilean presidents had asserted a great degree of pride when they had both owned the Maquis estate together during the 19th century, which had led them to arrange certain cabinet meetings within the Colchagua Valley. Specially constructed brick bridges were provided for ministers in order to cater to the ongoing assemblage traffic, with remains that are still present at the Maquis estate to this day. The Hurtado family had acquired the estate of Maquis in 1916 with a wish to develop a fine wine producing business. It was not until 1927 that the initial building would be erected as one of the earliest Chilean dwellings to be fabricated utilising concrete, following the recently completed studies of the then owner and engineer 23-year-old Ignacio Hurtado. In 2002, a second winery had been established and inaugurated by the Hurtado family with the intention to facilitate additional wine production that would enable elemental expressions for characteristics and personalities of the grapes manifested into the purest consumable creation possible. The Maquis estate is committed to a transcendence that is only able to be accomplished by way of traditional artisan methods that are carried out with care by an expert and wholehearted working team. Ricardo Rivadeneira Hurtado had attended his professional education in both London and Santiago de Chile, where he would commence studies for engineering in agronomy and later enology. After having had completed his studies, Ricardo did then begin working with the winemakers of the Charles Krug winery in the Napa Valley, United States, as well as the Chateau Brunet de Cru in France. Afterwards, he would return to his homeland of Chile, serving as head of the development department for one of the largest Chilean wine industry suppliers. And in the year 2000, he would then assume the general management of Maquis. This position would then be expanded upon from 2005 onwards, having also begun to helm and oversee at a similar role for the sister winery Viñedos Calcu. Since 2019, Ricardo had served as executive director for both Hurtado family vineyard estates, Maquis and Viñedos Calcu. His participation is regarded as the pivoting influence that has become the primary component for the elaboration of a portfolio held to an expected high-achieving standard that are the Chilean wines from the Colchagua Valley. Chief winemaker Rodrigo Romero had studied agronomy at the Universidad Católica de Valparaíso, with a major in fruit growing and a postgraduate degree in wine production technology. He has practiced as a winemaking and agricultural consultant with many of the major vineyards in Chile. That does include Cavas Submarinas, Veramonte and Dos Andes. Rodrigo has also held posts abroad at Pierre Bruret Domaine, Patrick Piuzet Domaine, and Jean-Marc Brocard in Burgundy, France, Vittoria Nitari Castellina in Chianti, and Casina Ferpo de Maserati di Parodi Agostino, CSS in Italy, and Franciscan Estate Winery, Napa Valley, the United States. In 2013, Rodrigo had decided to accompany the team to accept the position and placement at the forefront as chief winemaker of Maquis.